Well, guys, this is going to be kind of an intro. Sorry for the bumps here. This is kind of a particularly unpleasant road. I don't have any equipment to adequately videotape riding snowmobiles yet. I will look into getting one of those GoPros that are stabilized. I have ones that I haven't used in years, and the batteries are probably garbage. The problem is they just don't stabilize very well, and with how bumpy snowmobiling is, I just didn't want to just shake everyone to death, kind of what I'm doing right now. Sorry about that. I wanted to put together some part of the intention of this channel is to show what Michigan has to offer. And as you can see, we've lost our snow down south here. In terms of opportunities for outdoor activities, because that's a major part of Michigan tourism and Michigan culture. If you live in Michigan, going up north, as we say, is a major, it's a big deal. You say you're going up north for the weekend, everyone's like, oh, cool, where are you going? You know, it means you're going up to have fun outdoors. That's what it means. In some way, some people aren't as motor vehicle oriented, and maybe they're going wine tasting in Traverse City, or they're going hiking and whatever. But for us motorheads, it could mean dirt biking, cross-country motorcycles, snowmobiles, ATVs. There's lots to do. Trail riding with Jeeps or trucks or whatever. Lots to do. Swimming in rivers and tubing, and Michigan is just unbelievably saturated with things to do. And I apologize. This road sucks. There's these heaves. Ready? Well, that wasn't so bad. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put together this video. And the intention of this video is for those of you who haven't snowboarded, god dang, I'm a snowboarder too, who haven't ever snowmobiled before, and you're like, man, this is something I'm interested in. I don't have any friends that do it. I don't have any family that do it. That's me. I don't have I have friends who snowmobile, okay? The problem is that they're so busy doing whatever family situations or other choices that they do in life. I didn't have anyone to go with. And I've always wanted to learn how to snowmobile. I've been a dirt bike and ATV rider for my main young teenage and up life. I started riding four-wheelers when I was like 4, maybe not 4, but like literally as soon as my finger and my dad trusted me to actuate the trigger on a four-wheeler, I was driving four-wheelers. And he would shift them, and I'd sit there in front of him and control it. And again, I'm sorry for the bumps. I'm trying my best, guys. This is just kind of the format I do videos in. They're just kind of off the cuff, real, communicating with you guys. You know, people who watch this page, I appreciate you guys, and I like communicating with you, so I kind of keep it real. When I get the barn done, I would like to have a studio-esque thing so that I can do this without having to do it in the car, and we can do it in front, and maybe have a microphone and whatever. We'll get to that point. I don't mind doing that. Channel's still pretty small. We're still learning how to do it. I'm learning how to be a better creator. I'm learning how to take cues from you guys and also just know better. I'm not a cinematographer. Never went to school for that. I'm just kind of winging it here. I now have ridden snowmobiles for 530 miles. Probably 500 of that. Oh, no, that's not true. Probably 450 of it is alone. So I've ridden 450 miles of trails alone on a snowmobile. And I've never snowmobiled on a trail before until this season. And I've gone 8 times, so 8 days. Actually, it's not really 8 days, so on this trip, you might hear I'm still congested. My daughter got a cold, and I came up here, and I didn't have any symptoms until I got up north. And I spent the first full day I was here on Thursday with a fever, felt like crap. I rode 45 miles, and I just did not feel good. And that, I think, is one of the things that is important here, is if something isn't right, stop. If you're going to ride alone and you don't feel good, or something doesn't feel right, you don't feel right, just go home. Don't hurt yourself. It's not worth it. I'm going to try and put together a series of videos, and this, I guess, is the start of my journey, if you want, of becoming a snowmobiler without really any guidance almost at all, other than my friends telling me it was a bad idea. Well, too bad. I'm an only child, so I've always had to do things alone. And, now I'm willing to go out on 100-mile rides alone. And I just did that the other day. Rode 116 miles all by myself. And I actually did it not very long. It was like 10:30, and I was back at the hotel by 4. I was ripping. But, and keep in mind also, too, I guess one thing is, some snowmobile trails, you're looking at this, you're like, what am I going to expect? Some snowmobile trails are relatively wide, actually not that much different than a 2-lane road, and really straight. You can go, you need to use your own caution. You can go quickly. There's probably going to be washouts and bumps and whatever, and from people spinning the tracks, and the next person hits it, digs it a little bit deeper. No different than a 4-wheeler trail. Every time you spin your tires, you're digging down a little bit, and then everyone else hits their suspension compresses, it throws some dirt up, and you eventually dig a hole, and everyone hits it, and their butt hurts, and then you end up with whoops, and then it gets whomped out to the point where it's not any fun anymore. Snowmobiling is much like that. You can have a totally flat, fresh section of snow, and then 6 hours later, it could be totally whomped out into a whooped out, nasty section that's kind of potentially unfun. But honestly, I hit some of those, and I was amazed how fast I could go on a snowmobile compared to if it was the same texture, same bumps, what it would be like on a 4-wheeler. Let me tell you, you can go a lot faster on a snowmobile than you can a 4-wheeler over that crap. So you might end up with a straight roadway, or you might end up with some really tight twisties up, down, side to side. You might have something in the middle where it's kind of a lazy, maybe a skinnier trail, but it's not super tight corners, and it's kind of lazy corners that meander around. There's kind of something in the middle for everyone. I tend to like the tight ones, just because I think they're more interesting. I like taking corners. There are people who like your straightaways so they can go Mach 10. That's not really my style yet, mostly because I don't really want to throw my life away at 80 or 90 miles an hour. Or more, but nonetheless, people with maybe bigger balls or whatever they got, or maybe less common sense, but maybe they're better endowed. Who is to say? Everyone has a different way of riding. So, if you're that way, I'm not trying to make fun of you. We're just trying to having some friendly banter here. So I'm going to put together this portion. I've kind of meandered a little bit, and I do this. I wanted to make a proper intro, and I'm sorry, the road keeps bumping around, but I don't know any better way to do this. Maybe I'll abandon this video and do something different. But, I guess I've kind of gotten off on that beaten track, so there's going to be several parts of this I want you to watch, if you would be willing to. I guess I'll start talking, because I've already meandered enough with you guys. I may as well keep meandering. So this portion will be sort of the intro, and also talking about riding alone. I'm going to do one on where I rode, and I think it's a really good spot for someone to start off with. Not only is there friendly people, there's a place to rent sleds. I did not rent a sled. I brought my own because of the cost, but you might decide for your situation that's better for you to rent, which is fine. I can tell you that, or in that video, I'll show you a picture, which will have the telephone number, and maybe I'll throw in the website for them where you can rent, and also the hotel that I like to stay at, because it's quite nice people, nice locations, clean. They have a nice hot tub, nice pool. Their sauna is broken. It's been broken for a while now, but I'm not really a sauna guy, so I don't really care. But nice hot tub, that's what's most important. After a long day of riding, it's nice to get in a hot tub. So we'll talk about where I went, which this year had great snow, friendly people, supportive people, people who care if you get home okay, that kind of thing. So we'll get to that in another video. So let's talk about riding alone. I chose to get a new sled because I thought it was going to be the safest way for me to go out in the middle of nowhere. And let me tell you, on snowmobile trails, you are extra in the middle of nowhere, because most of them, or a lot of them, are crossing swamps and stuff that are drained. I was talking to some people who do this. They have these big culvert pipes that are moved off to the side during the year so that water can just freely go around. And then what they do is they take the culvert pipes and they put them down so then the water can flow through the culvert pipes, and then the snow can pack up, and then they can bridge across the culvert pipes and basically turn what would be a swamp into a riding area. Pretty freaking crazy, right? So you are potentially in no man's land, big time. Now, this is a super dangerous intersection. Anybody who lives around here knows that. A friend of mine got hit here a little while ago. I'll let this guy go. Go ahead, bro. And then I will go. It can be very dangerous because of how angular it is that people, you get blocked with the A-pillar, you don't see piss. See that? You can't see anything. Someone could have pulled out on you and you wouldn't have been able to see them. So, I chose to get a new sled because I thought it was going to be the safest way for me to safely do this. In order for me to get a new sled, I knew I would have to ride alone because there wouldn't be enough times for me to be able to ride with friends. If this sounds a little bit like what you're going through, then I think you should stick around. I chose to get a new sled. So far, it's worked out very, very well. I think that if you were to get a used sled from someone you knew that was maintaining it, that'd be one thing. I would be very cautious of buying an old sled to ride alone on, as in like 2000s, early 2000s and back. You're getting into a machine that's been around long enough that it's going to have worn parts, and either you're going to want to buy it now, so in the off season this coming year, you could be fixing it, and you're going to be fixing a lot of stuff, trust me. And that older machine might need to have a track by now, which is a pretty extensive swap, and $1,000 out the door to be able to do that. You're going to have a lot into that, versus putting some money down and having a small loan, and it's not really much. It's if you're insuring a new vehicle, and if you're buying a new vehicle, it's pennies or pittance compared to buying a new truck. So to me, it was worth doing. It might not be to you. Go ahead and do whatever you think is comfortable. I'm not your mommy. But for me, I chose to get a new one. So I guess we're going to come about this like that. So the machine had 0 miles when I got it. Literally, I was the first one to put it into snow. It came out of the box. They warmed it up and did their computer checks, whatever, and passed all of them. So that means I took it. So the first time I hit the snow was at my farm, and I ripped around and kind of learned what it was like, how it rode, what it would do when you did things to it, and kind of got a little comfortable there, practiced getting it out off the trailer, those kind of things. It's an important part of it. If you don't have a ski or a snowmobile trailer that has ramps, you might need to use snow to get it on and off, which makes sense because if there's not enough snow to get your sled off the trailer, you probably shouldn't be riding. So there's something to be said for that. I literally just back up to a snow pile and back the machine off onto the snow pile, and then I also just ramp the machine back on the snowmobile, ramp the machine back onto the trailer when I'm done. That's what I've been doing this year. I'm sure we will do something different. Thankfully, I have a good friend of mine who is also a loyal viewer, and I appreciate him very much, that is getting a snowmobile so we can ride together next year. It's very exciting. I hope that works out for him and that we can do that, because obviously everything is more fun when you have a good person to be around. This is a cautionary thing. Riding alone is not really any different than riding with a group, because you are alone, required to keep yourself alive, safe, machine alive, and not kill yourself while you're riding, whether you're with a group of people or not. The only thing you get with a group of people is someone to help carry your body out, or someone to help you drag the machine out, assuming you're still alive. Or help patch you up. You might have a recovery brigade, but you are still responsible for your own safety and your machine's well-being. Whether you're with 8 people, 10 people, or 4 people, or 3 people, or 2 people, you're still responsible for yourself. Now, the other problem is when you ride with people, now you're responsible for other people. You might be setting the pace, or you might be taking up the rear where you're watching to make sure people are okay. If they're acting irresponsibly, then it's going to start affecting you. So keep that in mind. The knee-jerk reaction, I think, in the snowmobile community, and this is somebody looking from the outside in, okay? And I'm trying to, when I say that, I'm not trying to pretend that I'm like somehow different or better than the snowmobile community. I'm in the snowmobile community, but I'm a new guy looking in. It can be exceedingly dangerous to ride, and this isn't any different from four-wheelers or dirt bikes. It can be exceedingly dangerous to ride with a group of people who are wayward, stupid, potentially drinking, doing things that are dumb, exposing you to danger, because when you pull off to the side of the trail to help them, or when they do something dumb like run into the back of you because they weren't paying attention, or they're following too close, or whatever other crazy thing they're doing, you are now exposing yourself to danger as well as somebody else coming and hitting you because you're on the side of the trail trying to fix your screw up or someone else's screw up. So keep in mind, just because you're with a group doesn't just naturally make you safer. It can make you a whole lot more, could expose you to some risk that may not be as obvious as when you first are thinking about it. So I don't think there's any moral flaw in wanting to be a solo snowmobile rider. I guess now that I just said that, let me bring this in. I chose to make a Facebook page. So far, I don't even think anyone has joined. If you would like to join, it's called Solo Snowmobilers Club, I think is what I called it. So search that in Facebook. And my intention was for people to be able to post where they're going so we can kind of watch out for each other. Someone's like, hey, I'm going here. And someone's like, yep, I'll be there too, no problem. We'll exchange numbers, I'll make sure you're okay at the end of the day, you make sure I'm okay. That's how I'd like to see the group go. If that happens, I'd be really proud of that because maybe I did something nice for everyone. If it doesn't work out, then it was free to make a Facebook group. So if you'd like to join that, if you're interested in snowmobiling, and also I was thinking it might be able to allow people to network if they are going up solo, but they want to ride with people. Even groups of people can be watching that thing and being like, hey, you can ride with me, we're going to the same place, and you're, let's just say, a mid-level rider, and you don't want to, you have similar riding interests or characteristics as somebody else. They can say, hey, you can come ride with me, and we'll ride together. You probably need to be careful if you're a slower rider, and there's nothing wrong with that, riding with a fast group. And in the same way, if you're a fast rider, you're going to want to be careful riding with people who either choose to ride slower or ride slower because they're new, because you might be willing to do things that they're not willing to do. And if they are so new that they don't understand the concept of following you from a long ways back and going at their own pace, you might be setting them up for danger that's going to affect you too afterwards. So either they could go too fast and hit a tree. There's a whole story behind that. And I don't know how long this video is going to get. I could talk for days about this because, oh boy, my second full day of riding was just Friday a week and a half ago. Oh boy, I got a story for you. So either stay tuned. I got plenty of time to talk. We'll make this a long one. So if you're interested in this subject, you can sit down, watch not watch, I guess. I mean, you can either watch this, hang out, and pet your dog, and let's talk. So this is going to be a long one. I've already done this, so let's freaking do it. So I started riding with this group because, and I'm going to talk about an individual who I think is an awesome guy. And I guess I'm going to be kind of careful. I'm trying to think if I should do this or not. I think first names are probably okay, especially because, so he's the guy who runs the sled rental. It's called Sled House Rentals, if I remember correctly, out of the hotel in Newbury. So they will rent you a sled, and I'm worried about saying a price. I overheard it's like $380 for the first day, and then the price starts coming down the more you sled. That might change. Please don't, I'm not trying to be a dick and tell people your pricing. It's not my intention. I'm trying to give people information. So you guys, I'm sorry. You should know that I'm not trying to cause any problems. They are very nice people. They take good care of their equipment. People that I rode, or that day, the machines were top notch, and they did fine. And we did 123 miles that day. We only did 123 miles that day because one of the individuals who rented a sled smoked a tree. And he did that because he seemed, at least from my interpretation of the situation, I was in the very back because I was still learning how to ride my sled. I had ridden the first day on Thursday, which was the first full day I was up there. I rode 60, 70 miles alone in the morning and then went out and rode a little bit more. I rode almost 100 miles that day. The next day, I got talked into by the lady at the front desk who was concerned about my safety. She's like, hey, why don't you ride with these people? They're all going out together. Why don't you ask if you can throw them with them? Like I said, these people are super nice. You can go up there, get a hotel room, and you're going to bet that there's going to be not only people in the snowmobile community that are there that are going to help you and answer your questions. If you see someone wearing a snowmobile-related suit, or, you have a Skidoo hat or like Arctic Cat hat, whatever, ask them a question. Player's hat. Anyone with a snowmobile motif on, they're snowmobilers. Snowmobilers are nice people. They're interested in their sport, protecting you, keeping themselves safe too, and it's a good environment to be in. So anyway, she talked me into getting with this guy named Josiah, super great guy. He runs the Sled House Rentals there. Very nice guy, very impressed with him. Dog owner, just an awesome guy. Really like him. I like dogs, so I'm always I'm always someone who's a dog owner means the world to me, if that makes any sense. I don't know. Maybe that doesn't make sense to you. So I threw in with them and I rode with them, and there's nothing wrong with that. So Josiah's a great rider, and he was riding out front. And there were several people in the group who were really good riders with a lot of experience. They were right behind him, and I guess they were giving him a run for his money is what they were talking about. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. Well, one of the guys who was a little further back in the line was going Mach 10 in a straightaway, and he didn't quite get her simmered down enough, and he hit the corner berm, launched the berm, so it got the track off the ground, so there's going to be no more braking going on, and his sled kept on going, smoked a tree, totally destroyed, and I'll put a picture in here of it. It's kind of become my understanding, I haven't even seen it, maybe because I'm on the wrong social medias, but I guess I was told it was a famous sled right away because all the pictures were going around, because obviously it was a big deal. All of us were on the side of the trail trying to help him get the sled, recovered, this and that. He was fine. At least I hope he's still okay. He was fine. He rode the rest of the day with us. He was fine. So he bailed right at the last second, rolled out, all good. Sled was totally destroyed. If he would have hung on that sled, he would have had at least a broken collarbone or maybe some other broken bones and a broken face, because he hit that hard. But he bailed. He was okay. So we were all on the side of the road trying to get this cleaned up, and we were well out of the way. The problem is all of us almost got clobbered by several other sleds who did the same thing he did, which was go Mach 10. There was fresh powder on top of ice, so once you locked up the track on that fresh powder, all it did was drag the snow across the ice, and it was like greased lightning, man. An orange Arctic cat just about smoked me, and like I said, we were right up against the trees. Like, we were totally out of the way. So we all ended up moving our stuff way over so that someone couldn't hit us. Several sleds made the same mistake, and thankfully we think them seeing us screwing around hopefully is what triggered them to actually start slowing down. Had we not been standing there, we all were under the consensus that other people would have hit the tree that day. It was really slick. It was like a 5 or 6 mile dead straightaway. So keep that in mind. If you don't know what corner is coming, I guess I'm trying to tell you these stories so that you generate a lesson from it. If you don't know what corner is coming, don't continue proceeding at Mach 10, especially if you're a new sledder, man. If you're a new sledder, just go slow. You're not hurting anyone's feelings. You don't owe anybody anything, except for staying on the right side of the road, and except for if you get to a stop sign, be a good guy, let the people go by. If you want to try and motion them over, it's entirely okay to get over on the right side, far right side of the trail, and take your left hand and motion people to go by. That's totally okay. They'll pass by and they'll show you, they have 3 people coming behind him, and then the next guy comes and he says 2, and then the guy comes after that and they say 1, then the last person comes by and they put their hand up like this, that means 0. So that means he's the last guy, so you don't have to expect any more people to come. So that's how if you're snowmobiling and four-wheeling, it's common, four-wheeling and dirt biking, whatever, is to show people how many people are coming with your hands, and you just count down. If there's 6 people behind you, I think you would put out like this to kind of tell people like it's 5 plus 1, but sometimes I don't know how exact people are with that. Anyway, if you're riding alone, you'd always do this, showing that you're the only guy, so everyone knows that you're the only person, there's not somebody else around the bend. Anyway, I got off on the beaten path again. So that was an exposure to riding with a group, and there were several come on, truck, stay over here. There were several situations that I noticed, and I was happily riding in the very rear and taking it up the rear, as they say, making sure that everyone made it there safe. I may have been the new guy, but I have a lot of trail riding experience. It wasn't much of a step for me to get onto snowmobiles. So if you're a four-wheeler rider, side-by-side rider, dirt bike rider, and you want to get into sledding, you're already there because you have trail experience. You're going to be able to read the ground. You're going to be able to read the trail. You have the common sense already developed. If you're a new person, still the sport is for you. Please don't let anybody tell you that you can't go right into it. I don't care if you're a girl, a woman who's older, or an older guy or a younger guy. Doesn't matter. Just probably not your dog. You can do this. It's a sport that is totally learnable by anybody. Anybody with a functioning brain can do it. Don't let anybody try and discourage you. So I've kind of gotten off the beaten path here. Bring quality equipment. You really want to have a visor defroster on your helmet, because if you have any amount of breathing to you, and everyone breathes, you're going to fog up your visor. It's going to happen. Please snowmobile with a visor heater. When you rent a sled, make sure you can rent a helmet that's the appropriate connector that works for your visor heater. It will make your life so much better to not have to worry about your visor fogging up. I absolutely promise you it is well worth your effort, time, money, whatever it might be. Just snowmobile with a heated visor, especially if you're a new guy. Or gal. Hugely worth it. Very important. The other thing that I have for this is a Garmin. It's called a Garmin Overlander that I have programmed with VV mapping trails. So I have the trails from Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Indiana, and I think Ohio. But more importantly, we're talking about Michigan here. They're very good. You can navigate with them. So if you ride out for half the day and you're like, oh man, I have to go home now. Go find yourself wherever you got to get back to. Select that as your, destination, and tell it to go, and it'll navigate you home. They're set up to use. It's set up to say, and don't freak out about this if you haven't. Tolls are. You know how toll roads, you can tell on your phone to not navigate to tolls, okay? They do that, and then they set on their mapping all the public roads as toll roads. Basically, the roads are places you're not supposed to be in a snowmobile. Those are set to toll, so when it navigates you on roads that you're allowed to be on, as in trails, or the side of highways that are deemed legal for snowmobiles to be at. So it'll navigate you where you're allowed to be, as opposed to take you down some public road that you are not allowed to be on, and you don't want to be on. So it's a really awesome system. I know where I am at all times. It's set up with, it's kind of like a heads-up display if you want, to show you where you're going, where you've been, and what's coming up in front of you. You can watch what trails are coming, or what corners are coming. If there's a really tight corner coming, to simmer down. If there's, left, to go left, to go right. It kind of gives you a little bit of a heads-up of what's going to happen next to you. Also, obviously, it lets you navigate home when you're done. And it lets you see, if there's fuel stops coming or food or whatever, you can see where the towns are. And if you wanted to find out how far things were, it'll give you hours to destination, minutes, hours to destination, distance. So you know how far it is between things. So if you need to judge fuel, that's the other thing. The rule of snowmobiling is never drive past a gas station. Fill up. Even if you're only going to take a little teeny bit, fill it up, so that way you got it. I was riding, because I was intending to ride solo, and I have, is I ride around with one of the fuel cans that clip on to the back of my sled. It's a Skidoo sled, so Link Accessories Polaris has them. I don't really know what Arctic Cat has. Or Yamaha. You'll have to consult your knowledgeable person about sleds. I guess we can get into sled. I might do a part 2 of why I got my sled. We'll do that as a different part, because we're already at 28 minutes. Go prepared. Have gloves that are warm. Have a jacket that's warm. You can ride entirely with Carhartts or something like that. Now, keep in mind, Carhartts probably won't be waterproof, so if you end up getting wet, it's going to soak right in. But you could ride with bibs and a coat, or with a coverall, or, skiing stuff. Now, the only thing is, keep in mind, it's going to start smelling like two-stroke if you have a two-stroke, and it'll start smelling like exhaust smoke if you have a four-stroke. So if you have clothing, I even saw people riding in their hunting gear. Now, I would say I wouldn't really want my hunting gear to smell like a snowmobile, or in this case, an engine. But if that's what you got and you're going to wash it, then I guess that's on you. That's a choice you're going to make. I'm not sure that's a choice I'd make with my hunting gear, but if it gets you out snowmobiling, then heck yeah. A simple pair of snow pants that you could pick up at Walmart, and one of those nice zero exposure coats that you can get at Costco or Kohl's or whatever, or something equivalent. Something that has... It would be nice to have water resistance to some points so that it doesn't soak into you, and has insulation, whether it's down or the thin slate stuff or whatever. you don't have to have snowmobile gear, so keep that in mind. If you rent a sled, most rental places, you can literally just rent the clothing too. So you don't have to show up with anything but clothes on your back, and then you just rent bibs and whatever. I was snowmobiling in boots that, I mean, I don't want to call them hunting boots. They're leather. I'm pretty sure they're Irish setters, or are they Danners? I forgot. Whatever no, they're not Irish setter. I hate Irish setter. I forgot about that. I've had bad experiences with Irish setter boots coming apart. I think they're Danners. Yeah, these aren't Georgia boots. I think they're Danners. I'll have to look at them. They're 1,000-gram insulated hunting boots, leather. I use them when I hunt in fields because walking across mud and whatever, I wouldn't want to use like camo boots that I would bow hunt in. Those are, I mean, I have a separate set of boots I wear specifically for hunting. These are like my backup boots / hunting in a field where you're walking across mud. And they work amazing for snowmobiling. They're supportive. They have a high, the boot part is tall, and I think that's important to help give your ankle support. If something was to ever happen, you're supporting your ankle, and you're keeping yourself warm and whatever. That's what I've been using. Now, you might choose to do something else. You could use gloves from whether you're a snowboarder or skier, or you could use gloves that you can pick up at Walmart or Kohl's or Target or whatever. If it gets you out, it gets you out. If you're going to use cheaper stuff, you might want to buy some good hand warmers to keep your hands warm. Keep in mind, it's really the tips of your fingers and the top of your hands that are going to get cold on a snowmobile. Any newer snowmobile is going to have grip and thumb warmer, so you can keep your hands warm. So that will help you with that situation. But like I said, the day I rode on Friday, the one where we went to Quamanon, where the guy hit the tree, it was negative like 1 as a high that day. It was like negative 5 or 10 or something in the dark. It was cold on the way home, but I have a seat heater on my bike, and if you're trying to decide what you need, you can watch my video, and I think that my machine is perfectly suited to someone who wants to ride alone and support themselves. And let me tell you, it kept me warm, kept me safe. I'm a big fan. So we'll go through what attributes of why I got my machine. And it's not that you have to do the same thing. You might get it from another brand, whatever you choose to do. I think all snowmobiles made now they have their purpose. All of them are good and have different features that make them good at different things, or better at some, or maybe an engine isn't as good but the chassis is better, or something like that. I got a Skidoo mostly because I wanted, and I'll get into this other thing, but I was chasing the E-Tech. I like the engine. They're very reliable, and they have a lot of power, great fuel economy. I wanted the engine. Main reason I got my sled was because I knew I was getting a reliable engine, and because of the machine that I got having the full windshield, the heated seats. It has an air shock in it, so I knew, A, I'm a bigger guy, B, I am going to carry gear with me as well as the fuel on the back. It helps level out the machine so that it doesn't sag as much when you have a fuel can in the back. You'd be amazed. It's not really sag, it's more about when you hit a hard bump, how much the suspension drops. That's really what it's all about. And when you have the fuel tank in the back and you hit a hard bump, or a hard divot, or a hard washout, your rear track or your track is more likely to bottom out doing that when you're a bigger guy, plus you're carrying something around like fuel, which obviously weighs a good bit. 20 pounds shaking around behind you, that far behind the rider, is going to make a big difference to what the suspension is putting up with. So I got mine for those features, among other things. We'll go through the other thing, but that's something to consider if you have any history, or you think something is good, or it makes you happy, or you trust it. Any of those things are going to make your life better when you're riding alone and you're so far away from a road that you couldn't feasibly walk there through the snow. I mean, you could, it just would take forever and you'd be exhausted. We'll get to I guess we'll get to that kind of stuff later. So like I said, I've been using it. I have a GPS that lets me know where I'm going and what's coming up ahead and how far I am from things and how to get home. That is really important. I used a trailer that I already owned. It's just like a 12x6 like lawnmower trailer that I already owned. I took the beaver tail off of it so that I didn't have that as a windbreak. and I just back it up to snow hills and unload my machine and reload my machine using snow. That'll work for this year. We'll see what I do for next year. If you have your machine on if you're going to rent a machine, obviously that's way easier. It might be more expensive, but it's way easier. You're basically going to be a month. If you rent a machine for a day, you're basically at or almost a monthly payment for buying a machine. So keep that in the back of your head. It might make financial sense to you to rent, or it might make financial sense to you to buy. Only you can decide that, and I'm not here to tell you that. The most important thing is have something reliable, and if you can generate a relationship with either a rental place or a local rider, like I did, the Josiah guy, I generated a relationship with him, mutual respect. I respect him, he appears to respect me, I like him, he's a good guy. And in the same way, he made sure that I was safe and checked in. When I go for a ride, he knew that he'd pay attention and see, he could see right out of his office window that I got back okay. So it makes a difference. Just be a genuinely good person, and if you want to exchange your contacts with somebody you meet at the hotel, and just say, tell them your ride plan, and you're planning on being home X amount of time, and if you're not back by X amount of time, give me a call if you would, make sure I'm okay. Those are things that you could do, and I think any decent person, I know I would be happy to do that for you. So, if you're decent to people, they tend to return it. When you're riding on the trail, as I've said, stay to the right. That is the most important thing. When you see a snowmobile coming toward you, slow down. They may be experienced snowmobilers. They may be a lot more experienced snowmobiler than you, but they are not guaranteed to stay to the right. That's something I learned real quick, is that I needed to facilitate for people who were either disrespectful or distracted. So keep that in your back of your head. Move over for them and get yourself out of their way and slow down, because they might not move over for you. It's unfortunate, but the reality is that people are people, and not everyone is always paying attention, and not everyone thinks about how their actions might impact somebody else. And I'm not saying this that it's everybody, but it's worrying to me that every trail ride I've ever been on, I've had at least one instance, or whatever the heck it is, that someone didn't move over and I had to facilitate for getting myself out of the way. If I wouldn't have slowed down, and this is common, I've talked to Josiah about this, he does the same thing. When people are coming, he slows down, because he can't trust that people are going to move over for him, or stay moved over. I mean, you could get redirected by some snow and knock yourself over toward the middle, and that's not necessarily your fault, and it's amplified when you're going fast. When you're going faster, you can get knocked around, and in those split second, you need to not clack skis. I didn't clack anybody's skis, by the way, so don't think that happened. But I would definitely say I probably would have, had I not slowed down every single time someone was coming, and I didn't trust them to stay out of my way. I got myself out of their way. I highly recommend that you might consider that, because it might save your life, and I'm saying that very seriously. This is an extremely serious sport. Like any other extreme sport, you can die doing it. You can get really hurt. We pulled out another guy who thankfully wasn't hurt. People die every year snowmobiling, and a lot of people die every year snowmobiling. So I'm going to say this right now, and it's probably not going to come across very popular. I don't have a problem with people who drink. I occasionally have a beer. I occasionally have 2 beers. I truly do not believe that should be mixed with trail riding. I entirely agree that one can have a beer, have a burger, and it probably doesn't affect them at all. But the problem is that sometimes you end up with 2 beers or 3. And maybe you didn't have as much burger as you were planning on eating because you filled up your stomach full of beer. Or worse. Especially if you're a new rider, keep in mind that just because you choose to abstain doesn't mean somebody else isn't. I didn't see anyone. I've ridden now 530 miles or 34 miles or something like that. I didn't see anyone who I thought was visibly impaired on the trail or off the trail. That doesn't mean I didn't pass someone who was drunk or, somewhere in the middle. Also keep in mind, I guess I'm going to change what I'm going to say really quick. Someone else's decisions can have a major effect on your life very quickly with snowmobiling, because you come together so fast. Everyone's going, 30, 40, 50, maybe even 60. And hopefully you simmer down to 25, 30 when you're passing people. Maybe they don't. If they're still going 40 and you're going 30, that's 70. That is more than enough closing speed to kill you. Kill both of you. So please keep in mind, this is a very serious activity, and you should enjoy it to your fullest extent, keeping in mind that other people may not use the common sense that you're going to use. And just because you're a newbie and you've done nothing wrong doesn't mean that you might get killed because an experienced rider was drunk or partly drunk or something like that. I came across some people who were smoking joints on the trail. Impaired is impaired, guys. Keep that in mind. I really have taken to the sport. I'm making this video very cautiously because I am not an experienced snowmobiler in terms of years of riding. I am learning as I go, and I want to share that with you because I tried to watch YouTube videos on how to become a snowmobile rider. I didn't find anything. I'm trying to keep this as clean as I can, guys. Sorry. I didn't find anything worth watching. There's next level riding clinics. There's plenty of snowmobile reviews. There's people who are making trail videos. That's fine and dandy, but there's not a lot of commentary about what you should and shouldn't do. And that's what I'd like to provide if I can. We're 41 minutes into this, so if you're still with me, I appreciate it. I'm trying to give you as much information as I possibly can. Now, let's assume that you know how to start your machine. These are really important things. You should know how to start your machine, how to get your thing in reverse. You should practice picking the back of your machine up and moving it back and forth in the front of your machine so you know how heavy it is. And I say that because if you get stuck off trail, you're going to regret it. So I highly recommend potentially not doing anything off trail alone. Anything. Stay on the groomed trail when you're alone, because it could come back to bite you right in the butt. Now let's just say, like I was getting at, you have your machine, you know how to use it, you're comfortable with getting it on and off the trailer, you now want to go and ride. You put your helmet on, you remember to put your strap on, you plugged in your visor, you got your gloves on, maybe you're carrying, I like to carry a set of backup gloves in my, glove holder compartment thing, and I carry a winter hat, because you obviously aren't going to wear a winter hat underneath your helmet, but if you want to take off your helmet and it's cold, you might want to put a winter hat on. So I keep an extra set of gloves and a winter hat in my front storage compartment thing, and that takes care of what I need to have when I'm not trail riding, and I have a backup set of gloves that get wet, okay? I also use like a balaclava thing. It's a kilim or whatever the heck that's pronounced. You guys, if you're watching this video, you're probably watching or getting used to snowmobile stuff. It's a brand that makes perfectly good stuff. You don't need to have anything fancy for a balaclava. You could use something that you hunt with, whatever, something that kind of protects your skin a little bit from direct snow or cold contact and whatever. Sorry, I'm just watching what's going on here. What kind of thing is that in front of me? Is that a trailer? I think it's a trailer. It could be a tanker truck. It's kind of got it doesn't matter. There's a lot of lights in front of me. I'm trying to figure out what the heck they are. So you've done all these things. You're ready to ride. You got oil in your sled if you're a two-stroke, and you got fuel in it. You're ready to go. Now you have to get yourself either from where you take it off the trailer or from your hotel room. Usually, there's going to be an access road into the trail if you parked at a trailhead. Maybe it's short, where it's only a couple hundred feet or yards or something, where it's really not that big a deal. Or you may have to ride down somewhere to get to it. So one of the things you're going to want to think about and practice is part of snowmobiling is traversing off the cement, if at all possible, trying to stay as much of your skis on the snow as you can, between point A and point B, not on a groomed trail, but on like where they plow the snow off to the side of the road. And then also, too, you need to be able to cross driveways and stuff that have the snow piled up. It was a tanker truck, by the way. It's kind of weird. It's different because on a four-wheeler, you usually don't have to work that hard to get yourself from where you're starting to ride to where you're going to ride. On a snowmobile, you may actually have to put in some thought, and you may want to do something like go for a drive in your car and kind of see, car, truck, whatever, how you're going to get from point A to point B, and you know where to go, you know what direction to go, or maybe you ask somebody. If you ask anyone, they're going to be willing to tell you. Like I said, snowmobiling is a really welcoming sport. You should do that. You should ask people what they recommend. You may have to climb some relatively big snow mounds that have been plowed by someone, whether it's a business or a driveway or whatever. You're going to see whether you're crossing the... In my case, I'll just use my case, okay? You cross south out of the hotel property parking lot area, across the road to the south. You're going south across the east-west road. You get to the opposite side of the road where there's plenty of, where the grass would be, but in this case it's 3 feet of snow. And you can either go left or right. Either way takes you to two different ways that you can access the trail. If you go left, you would go down a little bit, cross over top of a little access street. Both sides of that had a little mound that you had to bounce over top of. No big deal. It's a couple feet tall. I mean, a sled doesn't even bark at a couple feet tall. Then you had to go through someone's front yard, cross their driveway, and then you you entered into a field. You had to avoid hitting any telephone poles, and you could ride down the side of the field, and of course people cross the field because that's the way people are. And it probably doesn't matter because you're not hurting anything, and evidently the owner didn't care, which is good. He's being a good guy, letting you, cross his property in order to access the trail, so it makes it easier. So then you're crossing a couple fields, and you have to be careful in the fields because there could be little bushes or whatever the heck could be on the ground. So you need to think about those things, what's underneath the snow, whatever. Then you would cross over top of a road with another berm that you have to bounce, or a snow pile that you have to bounce over. Cross over top of the road. It's a dirt road that usually would have snow packed on it because of all the sleds that went across. So you're just bounding across some snow. You make a hard right turn and you run along the side of the road. And then you run down some packed, it was almost like it was groomed. It was like a step up. If you imagine the side of the road here, if it had like a square, up and then over, it was like a paddock that you could run down. And that went for a good half mile, 3/4 of a mile back into the woods, down the road, past a couple houses, back in the woods, and then past the parking area where you would park if you went to a trailhead, and then you took the little access trail that got you into the trail system, and then you were good to go. If you went the other way, I enjoyed going the other way because it was more fun. The way I just told you wasn't very difficult. Well, when you went to the west, so you crossed the road, an east-west road, it was M28, and if you want to look at a map, M28, pull up Google Maps right now, M28, you crossed it was, it's called America's Best Value Inn. If you want to type that in, pause it, type in America's Best Value Inn, M28 is what you cross over. You cross south out of the parking lot right there, and you would go to the right once you get across the road, and you run along the side of the road, which is all snow. You'd have to cross a couple driveways, and each one of them got progressively bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you got to a logging company parking yard that where the trucks and the trailers go for getting serviced and delivering logs and whatever. They had a lot bigger piles because they had a lot bigger parking lot that they had really well scraped. So you had to do some navigation around a telephone pole and a road sign, and then you had to cross over top of these relatively big mounds. On the day that we got 12 inches of snow there, those mounds got to be a good 6 foot tall, 7 foot tall. So you're basically going up. It's not a vertical face, but I mean, you're probably talking 60, 70 degrees. Whoop, whoop. It's kind of a foreign thing for a new guy or new gal. So mentally prepare yourself. If you see a mound of dirt, go practice, or a mound of dirt, I'm sorry. If you see a mound of snow, go practice on it. Go practice bouncing your sled up and over top of it, because you're going to have to do that when you're traversing between trails. If you come off of a trail network and you need to go to the gas station, you're probably going to have to do that. If you want to go stop for breakfast or lunch or dinner, you know what I mean, stop for food, go to a bar, get some food, get a burger, whatever, you're probably going to need to do that. So this is something that's kind of weird in snowmobiling that is fun once you get used to it, but for new people, it could easily be kind of scary. So keep that in mind. That's an interesting, part. Now, I can't say for all trails. I mean, I've ridden now, probably 6 different, probably, trails, as in the trail moniker. There's Trail 9, Trail 45, Trail 457, Trail 2, and then Trail... What the heck was it that rode into Paradise? I can't remember what that one was called. Anyway, several different trails that I've ridden on. Some of them, you literally cross a road and now you're in the trail and you're trail riding. Some of them require that you take, like the way that I was just saying, where you had to bound over top of things. You go past the logging truck place and scale a relatively high pile of snow and bounce over top of it. And keep in mind, there's already tracks of snowmobilers that have done it, so you're literally just following where everyone else has been. It's inevitable somebody is going to be there before you. Someone got up at 2 a.m, went to go ride, because that's what they did. So let's just say you've done all this nonsense, or you're in some town and you need to get off back on the trail. You might have a connector trail that could be straight lined. It could have a bunch of zigzags. It could be a really tight little ziggy-zaggy. It could be literally down like an old dirt road that is left unplowed, so that it's just a road. There could be a multitude of different ways that you're going to connect in with the snowmobile trail, and it might have its own obstacles that you might need to contend with, like crossing off of, like I was talking about, the high berm that goes up and then it's kind of squared off nice next to the road. You might need to cross off that. Come on, truck. You might need to cross off that to cross into the road. So you need to mentally get used to and practice with your snowmobile how it behaves when you get it off kilter. You're going to want to learn, and I'm just telling you right now, you need to get ready to lean the opposite direction that it's tipping to help keep it stable as it tips. So there's a lot to it, but it's definitely not going to be a problem for anyone who's been around four-wheelers or dealt with dirt bikes. It's just a little different. And it's amazing what snowmobiles can do in terms of stability when you're doing these things. So I guess that's a little bit of background of, let's just say you want to go trail riding. And I guess we're talking about how you get to the trail. And let's just say you're there. You're going to want to know where you're going. So you definitely want to have a map at minimum and have studied the map so you know what to go. And keep in mind, snowmobile trails are well marked with the snowmobile trail identification, SM2 or SM45 or SM457 or whatever other trail moniker there is. SM, I think, means snowmobile. And they're all marked, so you can see where they go. You can clearly see that they're groomed, so you can just follow the grooming. You can't really screw that up too bad. And there's arrows when there's hard turns. There's usually signs that have like a warning. If you have a stop sign coming, if you have a hard turn coming, it'll have like a hard left turn arrow or a hard right turn arrow or a yield sign or a stop sign, like a warning to let you know it's coming. So you're not going to be, unless you're not paying attention, you're not going to be particularly surprised on the trail. There's, in my experience, always somewhere to pull off. So, when I say that, there's always somewhere to pull off near stop signs or hard turns or whatever. There's always like a meeting place where groups of people, when they're riding together, before they make a turn or stop or whatever, they let their whole group catch up to each other so they know where everybody is. So there's always going to be, or usually is going to be, a place for you to pull off at a stop sign or a turn, to pull off to the side, regroup, check the map, check the GPS, whatever you got to do, check the compass. Keep in mind, in the Upper Peninsula, compasses can be hit and miss, because of how much iron is in the ground, it affects the magnetic field of the Upper Peninsula, so compasses can be a little bit difficult in certain places that have a lot of iron deposits. That can be a problem. So GPS is really one of your best bets. And also keep in mind with GPS is, and I ran into this, there was a water tower really close to one of the fields that you had to come through. I was in whiteout conditions one of the days. It was snowing really, really hard, and in the dark, couldn't see anything because it was totally whited out, and it was snowing really hard. You couldn't see anything. And the GPS got all turned around because I was kind of flying by night, no different than somebody would if they were in an aircraft in a snowstorm or whatever. You're kind of flying by your instruments. Milk truck, maybe? Probably milk. Maybe. Could be. I was flying by the GPS. Hopefully you guys didn't miss that. My phone was telling me something. I was flying by the GPS, and my GPS basically totally freaked out and pointed the wrong way, so I stopped and thought about it for a few minutes, kind of remember, because in the pitch dark, everything looks different. And I was also still learning the route. This was only, I think, my second day there. So this was Thursday after I got back from a night ride, I think. So, like, I was a brand new snowmobiler, okay? This was my first full day on the trail, and second in total. I snowmobiled on Wednesday when I got up there for a little bit of an evening ride. I got totally turned around, but I stopped, thought about it, looked at what I was doing, realized the GPS was telling me all kinds of crazy stuff, and what happened was I waited a little bit, and a group of snowmobilers came popping out of the direction that I needed to go, so I just went toward the snowmobilers. So, if you're confused, stop, wait. If you, and I guess I never tested this, but snowmobilers are going to be on a groom. If you're on a groomed snowmobile trail, there's a really high probability someone is going to be coming by in a not too distant future. If you're lost, confused, scared, stop, get off the machine, take your helmet off, flag down someone. Someone is going to have a GPS, and maybe yours died or something happened. My GPS charges off of a USB port that's hooked up to my machine, so it's always charging. I highly recommend you do that because snowmobiling entails cold weather, and cold weather is not too good on batteries. So probably not an ideal situation if you are going to have rely on a battery, because you're probably going to not have it very long. You definitely want it to recharge while you're using it. Mine's hooked up. It's got like it just clips onto a mount, and then it charges automatically through the mount. It's pretty slick. Highly recommend you have something like that. I highly recommend you have a GPS in general, because it's going to get you out of so many problems, and also it gives you a little bit of a play-by-play of what corner's coming. And if you're a single rider or a lone rider, solo rider, anything you can do to educate yourself of what's coming up is going to make your life easier, safer, and get you home and have you a good time. So I guess this has been an hour of me talking. Holy crap. If you're willing to watch this, I appreciate it entirely. Go ahead and like, subscribe, and we'll do a part 2, 3, 4, because good Lord, evidently I can talk about the subject. If you can't tell, I've really enjoyed snowmobiling. I think it's a really wonderful sport, hobby, whatever you want to call it, interest. I hope you guys enjoy it too. Thank you for watching, and I will keep trying to inform the best I can. And the next video about this will be about the location in general, showing the GPS, locations and stuff like that. Or Google Maps, maybe I'll use whatever might be easiest for you guys to be able to see. So I will be using, the next one will be not me driving like this, it'll be using GPS and whatever, maybe some voiceover stuff. We'll see what I can put together. I mean, I'm still learning how to make videos in that way. So thank you guys.